Can you see me as well?
Yes, I can see you. Good morning, buddy.
Oh. Yeah, good morning. Okay.
Okay. Yes, I can see you. Sorry for the technical issue on my end. So we'll be starting now. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry for the noise in the background. There's a rehabilitation or something going on upstairs, and so that's what you can hear. So my name is Juliana, and I'll be your host for today. This is the Artificial Intelligence Mentorship and Internship Program. And I'm happy that we're gradually rounding up. So this is the 5th week, and I'm thankful that we've come to this place. So I'll just quickly share what we're about and then go straight into the presentations. The Artificial Intelligence Technology Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students, young professionals, and enthusiasts across Africa. Our mentees are afforded the opportunity to access valuable advice, trainings, network mentorship, internship discussion forums, industry updates, and resource materials from experienced mentors. This program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Africa and around the world. You can watch our videos by searching for JIIPCC on YouTube and Facebook. Our hashtag is JIIPCMIP. Our objectives are to provide easy access to quality professional guidance, trainings, and resource materials for students, young professionals, and enthusiasts in Africa to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders, and to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation of mentees. Finally, to facilitate further mentorship, internship, scholarships, and job placements for the mentees. So we hope that through these sessions that we're having, they can learn and get guidance. And so some of our mentors have graciously agreed to have a 30-minute one-on-one session with any mentee that is interested. And so this is the link to subscribe if you would like to take part in that. bit.ly JIIPCCPM. Thank you so much. So we have 2 of our mentors here already, and there's something that is happening too. Some of the mentees are students, and so because they are students, they are writing exams now. So that's the reason why some cannot attend, and they send their apologies. So before going on, I'll just quickly read out the profile of our mentors. So our first mentor for today is Bode Akimodo. He's a co-founder and CTO of Lindsay Robotics. He's an expert in building hardware prototyping, development, management, and mass manufacturing of robots and automated systems. And the second mentor for today is George. George is a robotics, that's George Okorafor. George is a robotics engineer with 3 years of experience in robot research and development. He has built several robots that include robot manipulators and ground-based robots. He works as a robotic engineer at Cognitive Robots, where he builds and programs robot software using robot operating system. Prior to this, he worked as a robot research engineer at Robotics Artificial Intelligence Nigeria, where he pioneered research in robot manipulators and computer visions for robots. He also supervised robotics and IoT projects. His areas of interest are robotic manipulators and mobile robots. control, and the intersection between robotics and computer vision. He graduated with a BSc in Mechanical Engineering from the Federal University of Agriculture at Abeokuta. His research interests are robots, manipulators, mobile ground robots, dynamic systems, modeling and control, computer vision, intersection of robotics and AI. So with that being said, we'll just hear from the group that is ready to present. So I think that's group one. So please, who is presenting for group one? Okay, I can see that group one members are here. I don't know who is presenting on behalf of group one.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'll be presenting on behalf of group one. Chukwemeka will be sharing the slides. So while I make the presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You can go ahead.
Okay. So we'll be talking about robotics. We have a definition from Merriam-Webster Dictionary, which says that it's a real or imaginary machine that is controlled by a computer and is often made to look like a human or animal and performs various complex acts like walking or talking. So personally, I have a bit of challenge with that definition. I wouldn't know if robots are imaginary machines. I would think that they are things that are on ground, things that you can hold, things that you can feel, they can touch, right? So I don't know then if they're imaginary robots. And the other part that also talks about their physical look, that's saying that they are made to look like humans or animals. I would think that there are robots that do not exactly have the structure of humans. They are not humanoids, and they are not structured as animals, right? So those are my reservations with regards to the definition. And so robots, I would say, would be somewhere up in the chain in the evolution of machines generally. From many years back, humans have always played with the idea of machines and doing things that humans have always expended energy to do. And of course, they were made with the idea of making our lives easier. So instead of a person going to the farm, for instance, and expending so much physical energy, machines were developed from the very simple ones to the more complex and complicated ones. So the idea is humans have always played around the possibility of exploring machines to do work, which makes life easier. And I would think that robots flow, the idea of robots flow from that same positioning by humans, if you like, to explore ways of making life easier and simpler and more livable. So currently, robotics, development of robots is advancing, so to say. We know, or we've seen a couple of robots that have been developed. Either they are humanoids, in which case we mean robots that look very much like humans in structure, or more software like. So for more of the humanoid kind of robots, we've seen robots like Sophia, developed by Hansen Robotics. So Sophia is Sophia has blazed the trail in a couple of things. She has been, or it or she, I don't know the proper representation now, but it has been granted citizenship by Saudi Arabia, and Hansen Robotics has also developed a couple of other robots. So, and they're pushing, they're advancing, right? They're advancing, looking to also create some kind of database where it's not just about what is projected, what is programmed now into the robot, but a system where robots can access some kind of server so that the robot looks or behaves more like humans. They have more intuition, they have more, because they're able to access big data, and they're able to, scan through those data as events come up, as situations or circumstances come up. They're able to access data, and they're able to react over and above the programming they have received. So Sophia is there. Joyce, a sibling, it's being developed. Of course, robots have tremendous uses in our day-to-day lives. We have in the field of manufacturing, which is one of the largest employers of labor sector, employment sector, robots have been largely utilized. We're aware of, we have been told that there are over 3 million robots that are currently being used in assembling plants and various manufacturing entities, companies, organizations across the world. Also in logistics, we see robots being used, from shipping goods to moving them to shelving, handling, packaging, and all sorts of uses under this head. Of course, even at homes, we see some uses that robots have been put to. We see them performing household chores and the likes. In travel, transportation, this is also an area where robots have been used tremendously. Self-driving cars, companies that are racing in this area to both self-driving cars, ride sharing, and all the likes. See Tesla, Ford, and other companies that are utilizing robotics for the development of cars and vehicles and the likes. In healthcare, this is also an area where robotics has played tremendous roles. We see the reduction in invasive procedures by the utilization of robots in surgeries. We also see physiotherapy, robots playing roles of physiotherapists, helping people recover from injury. We see robots playing roles of both medical and paramedical professionals, right? So, and as the years go by, as days go by, they have been put to more and more roles. We see it also in the pharmaceutical industry in recent years with COVID and the uses that robots have been put to. So yes, because humans will give themselves to more intellectually stimulating things, robots will be used for the maybe not so intellectually stimulating activities. Although the idea has been mooted to create robots that are just like humans, that will think independently of humans, that will just be like humans. And of course, it comes with its own fears, but that is not exactly within our scope at this moment. So there's a question of whether robots will replace the need for human labor. Those concerns have been there. There are various statistics as to how many jobs have been lost, how many jobs will be lost in the coming years, and how robots will take more jobs, right? So these realities are there, those statistics are there. In 2012, Amazon spent about $775 million, we're told, to purchase a startup company that was into robotics, robotics. And so as at then, the company gave, by the sale, Amazon purchased the rights they had and the robots they had manufactured. And today, they boast of over 200,000 robots in their warehouses. And to put it in context, that's about 200,000 jobs that have been lost. And Amazon is one of the biggest companies, not just in the world, but one of the companies that is big on the use of robots in their warehouses. Personally, I've seen a couple of videos as to how they engage robots in their warehouses, and for speed, they boast of speed in delivery and all that. So they utilize robots to ensure that that continues. And there's been a couple of concerns as to jobs, especially in Amazon, that robots are taking over. Right. So also we see the World Economic Forum report estimating 85 million jobs. We've seen earlier about 2 billion jobs that will be lost, or that are projected loss of 2 billion jobs and all that. But on the flip side, as we look at it, we see that this should not be much of a concern, because the same report from the World Economic Forum shows that as jobs will be lost, much more jobs will be created. So we can safely conclude that robots will not just take jobs, but the overwhelming use of robots, or the overwhelming presence of robots in the economy, in businesses and the likes, will only change the nature of jobs that we will have. So, because as we engage robots, those roles that are highly repetitive, and as lawyers, we have a couple of such roles. Roles that you don't really engage the mind, you just change a couple of things. They are basically repetitive roles. Those roles will be phased out. Across companies, there are such roles, those maybe front desk roles, maybe secretarial roles, filling forms, photocopies, and all of those very mundane, in quotes, mundane tasks will be phased out, and people will, have to engage roles that will demand more intellectual engagement, more intuition, and all of that. And of course, there's also the discussion as to, because everybody here is new, or this concept is new to everybody, right? There will really be no advantage. So you can't say, oh, you've worked 20 years and you have advantage over an entry-level staff, because, hey, this is new, everybody's just coming into this, right? So the competition will not just be about seniors and juniors. It will now be about who knows this stuff, right? So there will be that that shaking, if you like. Of course, for people in junior roles, who will ordinarily earn not so much entry-level roles. For those who have the knowledge, who have the skill, they'll be able to negotiate better. So there are regulatory issues, regulatory and governance issues. We see that discussions as to how do we regulate robots themselves, and how do we regulate those who design and create these technologies. Of course, I'm almost sure that everyone at some point has seen maybe a science fiction movie where the narrative will usually be something like robots taking over the world, destroying humans, and the likes. So there are conversations as to regulation. The conversations as to regulations. Well, for the regulation of robots, there's discussion about, should we treat robot as an electronic person, or do we treat robot as a corporate person in the same sense of companies? So for them to be subject to corporate governance issues, to corporate governance regulations, right? So there is that conversation. And both of them will have their pros and cons. So treating robot as an electronic person will be under the personhood approach. This was also recommended by the European Parliament's Committee on Legal Affairs. And there is the corporate approach, like I said. And so that is one angle from which we can consider the issue of regulation of robots themselves. Can be looked at from the point of warfare. As the world gets increasingly tensed, we will need to give more attention to this this issue of regulation, to the issue of regulation of robots, right? Because if there is a third world war, if there is ever a third world war, it definitely will be more devastating than probably First World War and Second World War combined, right? Because the advancement in technology is just unprecedented, right? So, and robots, of course, will be utilized. So there will be those discussions. There's the international humanitarian law that deals with warfare and that governs warfare and all that. So some of these conventions will also come into play. So we can also look at regulation of robots, or the usage of robots under several other heads of law. For instance, intellectual property. So how do we ensure, if a robot creates a work, who will have ownership of the work, right? Will the robot be conferred with ownership status with the benefits of intellectual property rights as having generated that work? Or will the work be ascribed to the person who created the robot? Those are conversations. There's also regulation. We also need to look at regulation on the environmental law. What is the environmental implication of certain kinds of robots for sustainability of the environment and the likes? Also, there will also be need for consideration of medical ethics with regards to surgical procedures, especially, and other kinds of procedures. How do we keep up with the extant rules or regulations governing ethics in medical practice while allowing the innovation that comes with robotics? So these are issues that will need to be considered in matters of regulation and governance. And these issues need to be considered because currently, very few countries have looked at the issues of governance of robots. Very few countries. In fact, I'm not aware of any African country that has looked at these issues. So very few countries have looked at it. So as going forward, countries will be confronted with these issues, and they may have to confront regulation and governance based on these principles we have highlighted. There's Asimov's law of robotics that basically considers three principles. First, the fact that robots must not hurt human beings or through inaction cause hurt to humans. The second principle is that a robot must obey orders given by human beings, except of course that will be contrary to the first principle. And the third principle is the fact that a robot must protect its own existence as long as the first two principles are not violated. We also considered in the course of the research work issues of we came across a case on the issues of ownership of copyright and who will, own the copyright. I think it was a Chinese case, a case in China, and of course the court was of the opinion that the ownership in the intellectual property will be in the developer and not in the robot itself. Since it was a creative work of the owners, they will be entitled to the copyright and not the AI. So the US will, and a couple of other countries will not accept registration of intellectual property from robots as conferring the rights on the robot. But one or two other countries, I think South Africa, accepted such application. So there are two schools of thought on the issue of liability of robots. So we're done with the issue of ownership of copyright. For criminal and civil liabilities, there are two schools of thought. The first school of thought is the fact that AI has the potential to surpass human intelligence, so it has to be granted legal rights and liabilities. It should be treated as a person. Flowing back to the issue of corporate personhood, more like a company, just as a company has rights. So if it violates the law, it should be punished, right? So if the robot violates the law, it should be punished. Sorry, at some point I was mixing AI and robots, but then there's also the school of thought as to legal rights and liabilities not being extended to cover AI and by extension robots, as these are just result of programming by persons. So they are not persons in themselves. They are result of somebody's intellectual effort. So liability must always go back to the person, the creator, the person that created them. Well, both schools of thought also have their pros and cons also. For criminal liability, of course, one wonders how punishment will be meted out to a machine, right? Technically, you cannot feel pain. You cannot kill it, right? The only way to do would be to maybe destroy it or something. And it will, the effect of death to a human will not be the same effect of destruction of a robot or something. So for that, well, it will not carry the same weight. It will not carry the same strength, as it were, when same is done to a human. So for civil liability, one wonders how damages can be made, how reparation can be made, how the robot
to round up.
Okay, how the robot will be able to make reparation for hurt or damage, right? So it may still go back to the person creating it. So these things may not yet be cast in stone, but I would believe that each case will be treated, they will be treated on a case-by-case merit. But as it were, as the position currently is, if a machine causes damage, liability will most likely vest on the creator of that machine. And I am not sure that we have got to the place, we have developed to the level where liability will be fixed on a machine, just as based on our current realities. So, like we have stated, this is still very much a developing area of our lives, and we believe that certain details will play out, will be fine-tuned as we go on in this. So thank you very much. That is a presentation for Group 1.
Okay, thank you very much, Abraham. Thank you for the presentation. And I also want to thank your group for working together and for making sure that your work is submitted on time and that you also get to present. Thank you. So I will be calling on the mentors now to make their comments based on their own experience on this subject matter. So I'll call on Bode, and then after he speaks, I'll call on George. After they've both spoken, they would go to the questions and answers. Okay, so let's hear from you, Bode. Thank you very much, Bode. You're welcome.
Yeah, okay, so thank you, Diana. So I went through the document, and as has been explained, okay, so I think there are some clear there are some things in the PowerPoint presentation where I would strongly have to clear the air on. Okay, so back then, the definition of robotics, and I think based on all that we've seen, the definition of robotics was based off back then. So we're kind of looking at this thing from what was robotics in the past, what was robotics presently, and what could robotics in the future be defined as. The truth of the matter is robotics will have different definitions in different eras, right? We're in an era where there's a lot of everything being fast. there's a lot of what they call it, requirement for efficiency. There's a lot of requirement for everything fast food, fast deliveries, fast logistics, everything is required at alarming speed. So based on Asimov's laws and things like that, we should know that, for instance, and I'll take us back to the basics of what tech, for anybody that did maybe physics or science, definition of technology was that it's supposed to make him work more efficient. That's the essence of technology. So from that, you get machines. Machines are an enabler, right, to actually improve on a particular task. And so robotics started from the place whereby technology, which is machines, from the most basic system, which is the police system, which when you apply small efforts, you're going to be able to exercise more force, right, through a small effort, or exercise more force, or do more tasks, execute more tasks. So that is the underlying aspect of robotics that I would say. Another thing I caught up on, I kind of got interested in was how Amazon acquired Kiva Robotics a while back, and it was needed for their logistics and warehousing system. The explanation or the conclusion that 200,000 robots replaced 200,000 jobs is completely false. What you should realize about robots, for instance, warehouse robotics, is that those robots you see, those they call them AMRs, autonomous mobile robots. Their task is to reduce and to cut off the time it takes for a human being to move from one point to the other, just to get a package and get it to where it needs to be, right? Those are not efficient tasks for a human being. A human being should not be, let's say, walking 30 kilometers a day within a warehouse, right? It's not an exercise routine. It wears on the human. So the idea behind the robots Amazon acquired is to cut down the time it takes for you to go from one point of a warehouse. Now, if you see these warehouses, they are quite big, they are quite huge. A human being moving from one point to the other almost every 5 to 10 minutes is going to be very strenuous. It's going to be very inefficient. Your packages, which you normally get in let's say 7 days, are being cut down to 3 days now. Those robots are part of the efficiencies that you are seeing in the delivery of your package, right? But we may not really understand it, because we feel, oh, how can this affect this considerably? How can this aspect be a factor that affects this other thing? Like I said, going back to what I said, the definition of robotics will change considerably in the near future. We're still going to have human-machine interfaces, which are also known as cyborgs in the nearest future. Organs, humans will share organs with machines, right? There are going to be organs from like things like the eye, which has been a problem. Creating a natural eye is seemingly impossible for humans, right? It's seemingly becoming impossible for science. But we are seeing that machines or microchips or micro neurons and things like that, things that are electronic neurons, right, are much more feasible, right, to solving this issue of blindness, solving issues of we have artificial hearts, right? So the definition of a robot will change considerably, because if you have presently, which we do, you have a machine heart, or should I say robotic heart in a human. So what definition is that person human? Is that person machine, right? Is that person a robot? Is that person a machine? So it will clearly change. Now, if up to 50–60% of the organs in a human become are more or less machine, or more or less machines, right? What definition are we giving, right? That then we say, oh, they are more of a cyborg. So it will clearly change. Now, the aspect of jobs being lost considerably, COVID, I guess, kind of ushered in a lot of, kind of show the world why there are a lot of inefficiencies happening all around, right? The aspect of humans, we all know that the human population over the past centuries, has increased in its intelligence on average, right? The jobs that were done by hand mostly are now being, for the current generation, they are not really the exciting jobs. They are not the jobs. More people are seeking intellectually challenging jobs, right? So we're in a generation, or we are getting to a generation, or we're in a generation whereby the people are more what they call it, challenged by intellectual tasks rather than physical tasks, and that's why you see few people are wanting to go back to the farm. This generation is finding it hard to go back to the farm. So where I'm going at with this is, there's a new generation that is already existing, that is coming years from now, who are not going to be satisfied with doing things the old ways, right? You're going to, the jobs that we are seeing robots that are working hand in hand on factory floors with machines. And in terms of the liability aspect, one thing you should always realize is the majority of robots that will exist in the world cannot think on their own. They are programmed machines, right? They may have a bit of machine learning, but the truth of it is, things like Sophia, right, will be deployed compared to the majority of robots that will be deployed in the world's population, will just be a very tiny percentage. They may not even be more than 1 to 5%. But the majority of robots would be designed to perform daily tasks, menial tasks, tasks that do not require that much intellectual creativity. So the jobs of the future will be creative jobs. The jobs of that most people will be required to do will be creative jobs. So I would say, so majorly for me, the liability will fall heavily on, for instance, like I said, those robots are simply machines that have a manual, that have a guide, that whoever is going to be utilizing it will definitely be guided on safety rules, right? So, except for robots which will have to interact on a day-to-day basis with humans who are not direct owners of those robots, then we can't really talk so much about that liability, except maybe in the aspect of autonomous robots and things like that. So yeah, I guess that's my take on those aspects. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bode, for your explanation. So it's good to know that what the robots will be doing will be to handle the menial jobs, while we humans will be handling the more intellectual and creative jobs, hopefully. Thank you very much, Mr. Bode. So let's move over to George. Hi, George. Mr. George, are you there? Please, would like to hear your comment on the presentation.
Yeah, hello, Julian.
Yes.
Sorry, I was trying to get my unmute button. Yeah, it was a very nice presentation from Chuku. Sorry, I'm trying to get his name. So it was a very nice presentation. I liked the way you touched on all the areas from how it replaces jobs. People are always very concerned about that part, and you really did justice to that. And then so I heard you when you were defining robots according to the definition you found online. and you said that you don't, you are not really comfortable with the idea of saying robots are imaginary, right? So it's true. The definition is not very well accepted by me also, because robots are tangible, right? They are tangible things that we can hold and see. So very good presentation. Perhaps you might have more questions you would like me to answer. I would be here to answer them.
Okay, so would like to know from your own practice how, based on the topic, robotics and oversight, from your practice, what is your take on it, both in the international space and in the African space?
Yeah, so it's becoming really, it's getting really more into our lives than it used to be, long time from now. In the past, robots are usually, locked in cages. In the car manufacturing components, robots are locked in cages away from humans. But now they are coming very much into our lives. You find social robots, you find them in hospitals helping elderly ones, older ones who are old, and these robots can actually help or assist this healthcare, this elderly care homes, right? So robots are coming more and more into our lives, and it's making our lives really, really easier than it's used to. Yes, it will take over jobs, right? But just like the person who just presented, it will take over jobs that are repetitive, right? And even if, yes, it takes over jobs, and it will keep happening, right? Because when the computers came, it replaced humans also. So humans constantly evolve, and they always find ways to make things easier for them. So if not robots, something else will definitely take jobs, because humans will find ways to do things easier and more efficiently, right? So that's the area that is of concern to people. They're concerned that with the rise of robots becoming more and more into our lives, humans will lose their jobs, right? So they will lose their jobs, yes, but jobs that are very repetitive. So if your job is to move materials from one point to another in a space, then those kind of jobs are replaceable by robots, because they can do that already. They can do that with high precision, and they won't get tired of doing that. So that's that. Okay, so that's that in terms of robots and jobs. But all in all, I would say that robots are really, really helping us to, do a lot of things that we are not able to do efficiently, especially in interfacing with dangerous tasks, right? So we have robots that are used in nuclear plants. Ordinarily, sorry, I'm seeing a question on the.
No, you can continue. I was the one that just posted it. So when you're done with your explanation, then I'll read out the questions. Thank you.
All right. So you find robots that are helping in this regard very, very well. I saw a video of a robot that helped firefighters in combating fire, right? So this is a very dangerous task. In nuclear plants, very dangerous one also, because of the radioactive substance that can cause harm, long-term harm to humans. So we have robots that are deployed in these areas and are really helping to, help interface with this dangerous task. Then we also have robots that are helping in surgery, right? So with a human surgeon, you find out that you have blood loss. Like the blood loss is more compared to when you are painstakingly, stitching a person or trying to get to a particular organ in the body. So robots have been able to do these things exceptionally well and with very, very high precision. So these are where we want robots to come in, right? Coming in places where we need precision. And there has been scores of robots that have done very well in this area. And research is still going into how to even make these robots do more, right? They are already very precise. As far back as 1990s, we already have robots that can do surgeries at that high level of precision, right? So this is the area also that robots are gaining traction in. And we want them to perform this kind of task, right? So I remember I asked a question one time, and I said, if you had a robot that had experience of say 1,000 doctors, right? The experience level of 1,000 doctors, and like 50 years into the future, this robot had experience. Would you allow this robot to perform a surgery on you? And it was a very funny question, because people feel that robots operating on you, they are concerned about their safety. But the truth is that these robots are very, very precise. They are very precise, and they can perform this task with very, very striking precision. So do you have any other questions? I see that posted on the chat.
Just before we go to the question, so the person to present for group 2 is here. So I don't know if he or she, I'm not sure if it's a lady or a guy, if they can present for the second group before we take the Q&A.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, Follow. Okay, so while he or she, because I'm not sure of the sex, while the person is getting their network or muting, I would like to say that for the IP parts, it will depend on the regulation that is used in the particular jurisdiction where that issue is. So if in that jurisdiction they have said that robots or AIs can be authors or owners of intellectual property jobs or works, then those AIs or robots will be the owners. But if it's clear that no, then they would not. And also, when you see some of these registrations, there is the statutory owner, and then there is a true owner. That's the person that invented it, if the person is an employee and all that. So it will depend on a case-by-case basis, and it will be the judge that would decide if it's not so clear. So I don't know if Folu is ready.
Good afternoon, ma. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm ready. I'm sorry. Okay, topic given to us is robotics and oversight, then robotics as it relates to labor. First, I'm going to start with the definition of robotics. According to the dictionary, we used Merriam-Webster. Robotics is defined as technology dealing with the design, construction, and operation of robots in automation. Then this is just like robots used in like labor, and then we defined labor as work, especially like physical work. So robotics as it relates to labor is just simply using robots to do what human
So are you there? Hello, Folu. Sorry, there's something going on your end. I'm not sure. Follow, you're muted. Okay, so maybe we'll just go to the Q&A. I'm not really sure what's going on.
I'm so sorry. So sorry. Can I go on, please?
Okay, yes, you can.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. And they're like, oh, robots are trying to like take our jobs. Human beings will be left without jobs, and also like with this presentation, you will see the pros and the cons of robotics as it relates to labor. So I will just give advantages of robotics, like the use of it in labor. One, safety. Safety is the most obvious advantage of utilizing robotics. Heavy machineries that run at hot temperature and sharp objects can easily injure a human being. By delegating dangerous tasks to a robot, they are most likely to look at a repair bill than a serious medical bill or a lawsuit. So employees who work dangerous jobs will be thankful that robots can remove some of this risk, which I totally agree with. Then another advantage of robotics in labor is speed. Robots truly will not have to like get, okay, I'm going for a vacation, or oh, I want to take a sick leave tomorrow, or oh, I'm not feeling so good, I won't be able to come in, things like that. We will not get them like when dealing with robots. Once you assign a task to them, they do what they are meant to do, and they'll do it with great speed. So they'll be able to meet deadlines, and then they'll be very efficient. The third one is consistency. Because robots are programmed to do a particular thing, then they are consistent with it. They don't have a mind to say, okay, maybe I should do it this other way, or start thinking otherwise. Once they are programmed to do something, they do it. So this means that they do exactly what they are supposed to do, and then they are consistent with it. Another one is perfection. Because robots are programmed, they are automated. So whatever you give them is what they do. It's not like, oh, at the beginning, they are delivering like 100%, and then get to like in the middle of the month, and then they are like, oh, I'm tired, or oh, I'm already getting tired of doing this over and over again. So the same energy they put in from the first day, the same energy they put in like to the last, or maybe went until the robots start having issues. So you have like perfection in their work. Then when they are doing, when the talk that, oh, robots take away job, they don't usually take away job. They just change the type of jobs that they that exist. So we'll now need more people that will be employed in the position of, oh, creating robots, and then designing them, and then coupling them to make sure that the robots are well built and they do what they are meant to do. Another one is productivity. So jobs that need to be completed by humans will be done by humans, and the ones that robots will be able to take care of, they will do it. In that way, work will be more productive. Then I'll go further to talk about the disadvantages of robotics in labor. We all know that although robots would help productivity and all, in the same vein, it's still going to like cause unemployment, because whether we like it or not, whatever jobs that robots are doing, humans have been the one doing it before that, prior to that. So that means some human beings will be laid off their jobs for robots to like take over. So it would definitely increase unemployment rates. Then the second disadvantage is the poor will get poorer and the owners will get rich. The humans who have no work to do,
Hi, Follow. Can you hear me? Okay. So the questions that we have, there are 3 questions here. What is your view on the prediction of job losses and how it can be managed? The second question is, how do we cure the issue of liability of robots in the event of a malpractice? Who is to blame? And then the third question, can we use the utilitarianism theory to support the need to confer legal personality on AI? And I think the last question is, what is your take about robotics replacing human labor in the medical sector? Doctors, therapists, psychologists. Hi, Follow, are you still there? Okay, so maybe we'll just hear from Bode for his response and then we'll move to George. Hi, Follow, are you there? Okay, so let's hear from Bode.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so for the first question, my view on prediction of job losses and how it can be managed. So I'm going to say that, like I said earlier, a wise, or let me just put it that way, a forward-thinking nation will most likely be preparing jobs for its future generation, right? Rather than rather than those in the present generation. What I mean by future generation, there are jobs that the future generation will most likely be used to, right? Will be eager to have, and those jobs are not going to be the jobs that machines can perform. The menial jobs, the risky jobs, the physically dependent tasks. So we are going to be seeing a case where we're going to see significant cases where the generation of the future will have a lot of jobs, because once the jobs that they don't want to do are being handled by machines, then they will be in a position to actually create new jobs, because new problems will be created, which will be much more intellectually stimulating and creative focused. And I believe this current and future generation, that is the main aspect they will mostly thrive in. So I believe that a wise nation, or a forward thinking nation, can manage job losses by working towards making the right policies that will ensure that menial tasks where the jobs the present generation are not interested in, the future generation are not interested in, that they are creating those jobs for them, right? Because machines will eventually take over those jobs that the present and the future generation are not interested in. For the second question, how do we cure the issue of liability, the event of malpractice? I would say that the majority, like I said, of the classic case of, the majority of cases like Sophia, the AI-based robot, will be a very small fraction, if a very tiny percentage of the majority of robots that will be deployed in the human population. The majority of robots will be in controlled environments. They will be in control, like Amazon robots. They are in controlled, heavily controlled environments. They have warranties from the manufacturers. They have insurance. They are insured up to the point where if there are any malfunctions that causes damage or causes harm to a human, they are not smart. They are not smart, right? When I mean smart, they are not intelligent to make all the right decisions, because they are still composed of circuits and other things that can, that can go wrong, like in cases where the battery catches fire or things like that, right? They are just parts. But in decision making, where you have to do with AI, as I've said, we are not at the point where we'll most likely see the majority of robots having those capabilities. But in those cases, we know that there are laws. And a practical case in the legal setting was the case of Uber self-driving vehicles, which was involved in an accident, a fatal accident of a pedestrian. And the liability was not on Uber, because the driver who was in charge of ensuring that Uber had given instructions on how she should manage the driving experience, the test, did not obey those rules. And because of that, Uber was up. So as long as the company, the manufacturer, the inventor has created clear rules, clear guides and instructions on how to use their machinery, how to use their robots, how to use those equipment, and something goes wrong, then the liability, in legal terms, you have different cases of where the liability can fall. And like I said, there are things like insurance and things like that that cover those liabilities. Can we use the next question? Can we use the utilitarian theory support the need to confer legal personality on AI? I believe there will be a lot of deliberation on the aspect of merging using AI in robotics, and it won't be. I won't say there will be one case scenario, because there's AI used in robotics that doesn't do so much in terms of thinking for itself. The idea behind AI that we're also fascinated by is that we believe AI will be able to think like a human. But the majority of robots being with AI being deployed in them are mostly used for resolving the tasks they have to do. Nothing really in terms of thinking for themselves. So you're not going to see a robot that will get into an argument with a human over what kind of package they are meant to get, right? If a human says, okay, I'm meant to get this kind of food, right? And the human decides on kind of food they want, and the robot maybe makes a mistake, right, and prepares something else, there is not going to be an argument on the robot from the robot side, right, that says, oh, this is what you will have, and that is all I'm getting for you, right? So, but if AI was gets to that position of being so advanced, then you have a robot that will possibly argue with a human on their choices. But because we are not going to have that in significant proportions, then I believe that most issues regarding robotics and the use of AI will revolve around navigation issues, using AI for navigation, using AI to make better decisions, not decisions that would allow them to question a human, right? So I believe that's the way I would look at it. So in terms of how would legal forces come into it, or how would legal what they call rules come into the use of AI? There will be many cases which will range from different industries, like the defense industry, the medical industry, right, and also jurisdiction. Right, there are some companies that will give companies much more opportunity to do more things with advanced AI in robotics compared to other countries. In the US, you have states who allow some things, while some other states do not allow those things, right? So if in terms of the legal jurisdictions and things like that, like you said, I believe the legal ramifications, I believe, is based on jurisdiction and some other factors which will be considered. Robotics, the last question, just to quickly answer the last question. Robotics replacing human labor in the medical sector. Doctors, therapists, psychologists. In terms of doctors, majorly the role of doctors, as we see today, is to be able to listen to a patient, diagnose what that patient, probably is what kind of sickness or disease the patient is probably suffering from, and then prescribe drugs. Most of these things are being done through data, right? Data, previous data, historical data, and things like that. Now, if machines have access to this, if robots have access to this, they will definitely be in a position to actually take on those roles. So definitely we will be seeing robotics in the medical field that are able to do the jobs of doctors, right, in diagnosing and prescribing, right? Because science is also going to be advancing onto the level whereby AI will be used to actually give better, how would I put it, better accuracy and prediction on what a disease is or might be, because we know even doctors have make mistakes in those aspects. So the idea of using AI is to work in two ways. After the doctor makes a diagnosis, they will also have to use a machine learning or AI-based robots or AI-based system to actually back up or to actually, confirm their diagnosis. It will also happen, I believe it will happen the other way around as well, where if AI is used, a doctor may still need to see the patient, even if it's virtually, to do those things. So for therapists, psychologists, so those may be the tricky aspects, right? So therapists, psychologists, you will definitely have machines which can interact with humans at the point of, would I say, having conversations? Yes, having conversations about a human being able to discuss with a machine and the machine being able to give solutions. But I would say these are not clear cuts. You have different levels of advanced machines, right? Just the same way you have different levels of advanced vehicles, right? You have different brands. So you some companies will have much more advanced solutions than others, definitely. So based on your choices, you could decide on, what if this machine has been found to give better results, do I go for this or go for that? So definitely we will most likely see robotic systems that are used to do therapy, yes, for therapy and psychology, psychiatrists, psychology and things like that. Yeah, I believe so. I hope that answers those questions from my end.
Yes, thank you very much for your response to questions. So we'll be hearing from George that you said that jobs that people don't want, and I was just trying to think about Africa and especially Nigeria, and I'm just thinking jobs that have done their masters and don't have jobs. Are we going to say that we're in the same position with countries that are saying that people don't need those jobs? That's why they need the AI. So that's just my thoughts. Can you still hear me, please? Then, secondly, please let me know if you can hear me.
Hello, Janela. I'm sorry, I got kicked out of the meeting.
Okay, okay. So you
Yeah,
can go ahead,
yeah, so,
comment on the question.
okay, please, could you just help me with the first question? My chat was cleared.
Okay, so I'll just read out the question.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question is, what is your view on the prediction of job losses and how it can be managed? How do we cure the issue of liability of robots in the event of a malpractice? Who is to be blamed? And then what is your take on robots replacing human labor in the medical sector? Doctors, therapists, psychologists.
All right, so for the first question, as regards what's the prediction of job loss, so it's very similar to what I said earlier, right? So I'll start from Africa, right? Start from Africa and then move to the other parts of the world. So currently in Africa, we still have jobs that are linear, so to say, in nature, that we don't have robots that are currently doing, even though we have companies that have robots in their factories doing some of those works. But largely speaking, right, in Africa, we still have a long way to go before we start talking about job loss due to robots. But when you talk about the world in its entirety, it's really it's moving at a very fast rate, especially in countries like the US that have deployed a lot of robots in their factories. So the job loss so in terms of job loss, I'll just quote one of the persons who presented, right? So it's like you taking 2 jobs and replacing it with 3, right? And if you have a robot if you have a human rather, that picks up a box from a pallet and moves it to somewhere else, and you now have a robot that does that particular task, you sort of have 2 more engineers or so to add to the company to manage those robots in terms of maintenance, programming, right? So it's just it's a change of job, right? Yes, these people would lose jobs, right? These people will lose jobs to these robots that have taken up this role. So it's about changing the type of jobs. And just like Bode has said, these are jobs that people, the upcoming generation would not want to do. We've heard of countries where, I think it was just of recent, where UK had a mass, demand of drivers, right? So people in the UK do not want to drive trucks again, and they had to, put that up on Twitter and said they needed to, bring in foreigners to come and drive trucks, right? So these jobs are jobs that in the coming generation would not want to partake in, would not want to do. They want to do they want to take part in a job that requires them to probably use their, their skills, their brains to think out solutions, whether technically or otherwise, right? So there will be a job loss for people who have not prepared themselves for the future of robotics, for the future of automation. And talking about automation, when we used to, the machines we used to have in the old days, right, that were not, that didn't have these automated processes where you have, for instance, I'll just give an example of car production, right? Before robots came, these vehicles were produced by maybe like 10 or maybe 20 engineers building one vehicle, and it takes about maybe like 1 week or even more to produce just 1 unit of car. But now, with the advent of automation, we now have a flow process, right? A production line where you have a robot that will paint, a robot that will mount the engine, a robot they have different tasks. So what happens? Those people who used to do those tasks before, those people who used to fix the engine, those people who used to fix the chairs, they lost their jobs, right? And this will keep happening because we want to, companies want to make profit. They want to produce faster to meet the rising demand, right, of goods. I'm sure that if you go online and order from Amazon, you would want it to be delivered in at least a week. Now, without robots in Amazon's warehouse, that was initially difficult, right? You would wait probably a month plus to get your goods because Amazon they have a very big warehouse. But with robots, they've been able to manage these things. And sad to say, some would have to leave, right? But I think Amazon did well in that they didn't take out so many of their people. They still have people who were previously there that the previous workers that were still maintained there, right? So these robots come and bring the goods from the shelf because they have this mobile robot that lifts up shelf and bring the shelf to a worker there who would then take those goods and put them inside the package, right? So all in all, there will be job loss, right? It will keep, and it's happening faster in foreign countries. And with now we are discussing about robotics here, it's coming up in Africa, right? It's coming up in Africa, and people are starting to come to the realization that robotics is going to come eventually, right? It's going to come into Africa eventually. So people are becoming aware of that fact. And being a waitress in the restaurant, right? They will not be able to get those jobs that they used to get overseas. You know, those people who here who do not have maybe a BESc or maybe a post-secondary school education that usually travel overseas to get those jobs. These jobs are becoming scarce there because automation is taking over those jobs. So even when Africans live here and they go overseas to get those jobs, very soon those jobs no longer be there again because robots are already doing these things. You have a robot waitress that will bring your food to you. You indicate your order. The robot goes to the to the counter, get the food for you, and bring it to you. So these things are they are increasing fast. The job loss it's happening, and US is recording a lot of that, and this will spread to all other parts of the world. So your next question about how will you manage liability, right, in case the robot malfunctions? Am I correct?
Sorry, I've just put them in the chat box.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All right, so how do we cure the issue of liability of robots in the event of malpractice? Who is to be blamed? So yeah, so just like Bode has said, right, there are levels to this highly intelligent robots that so we as humans, we know we exist, right? We know we exist, and that is a very rare thing that is only peculiar to we humans, that we know we exist. Not just not just we can talk, we can think, we can laugh, but knowing that you exist. So when a robot is conferred with that idea and it knows that it exists, then obviously that robot could be liable to anything that it does that results in damage or of lives and property, right? But we haven't gotten to that point where robots are actually aware of their consciousness. The best of that robot is it's called this robot. It's an AI, right? It's an AI, because most of the things that make robots really, really smart are the AI capabilities that they have, right? And many of the robots that we have on the floor right now, they just have computational abilities with a few AI abilities, like maybe a robot wants to go to a shelf and pick a carton of Indomie, right? So it needs to detect that this is Indomie, this is not Indomie, right? So those are basic vision related tasks within the context of that place, right? So in those kind of robots are not, they have AI, yes, quite, we have AI running in them, right? But they are only specific for that task. So for those kind of robots, you won't say that you would hold them liable to any malfunction. It's still the owner of that robot, the company running that robot. They would have policies in place to take care of such when it arises. But for robots like Sophia that has been given citizenship, I would want to believe that such kind of robots will be conferred with some form of liability, if it malfunctions and stuff. But then we have very few of those robots in existence. Many of them are in the warehouse. Many of them are in security. Many of them are in the army, right? So they have AI capabilities, but they are just specific to that particular task which they're performing, and not just like Bode said, not questioning you or I'm saying no, I have to do this. That's a higher level of intelligence. So the robot knows that it exists and it can take actions on its own. So we are far from that. I really say we are far from that. But the closest to that is GPT-3. You can check that up and see what the robot can do. So next one we have is, can we use the utilitarianism theory to support the need to confer legal personality on AI? So it's close related to what I just said, right? So for you to do that, the robot has to have that higher level of intelligence to be conferred that legal personality. So if a robot cannot do beyond, okay, this is a ball, this is a face, this is not a face, this is a lady, this is not a lady, this item is not this item, then it's very limited in what it can really do. So you can't really classify, you can't really confer that personality on that robot because it doesn't have this what's it called again? Superhuman intelligence. Let's just say human intelligence of the list, right? So those robots have AI, right? But they are limited in what they can do. So unless they have the ability to make their own decision, they are conferred with that ability to know what they are doing and respond to questions by themselves without explicitly being programmed to do so, right? Then I would say, yes, you can use that. You can apply that to theory, right? To confer that legal personality on that robot that runs that AI, that super intelligent AI. Then the other one is, sorry, the other question is, what is your take about robotics replacing human labor in the medical sector? So I'll support what Bode said, right? So because as we all know, works on the doctors to population ratio, or one doctor per person is really very low, right? So in that instance, if you have an AI one AI system, doctor in front of you, the world in different for different diseases, different symptoms, then it's possible to replace them, right? So where is a bit tricky is, where you need specialized, where the patient needs a human to actually be there, because you can't take away that factor, because when they know that they are speaking to an AI system, they might want to speak to a human, right, who can sympathize more with their problem, because the AI would talk to you in just clear terms. I have used Siri and Google Assistant, and they just talk like that. It's plain talk. So like there is a little or no emotion, right? So aside from the fact that the AI system can actually tell you this is what's wrong with you. Maybe if you are depressed, it can know if you are depressed and prefer things that you could do. You still might need that human touch, right? That human touch that applies that emotion. The way I would say, oh, I understand that this. So a human can sympathize with you, right? A human can say, okay, I had this experience one time and it was really bad for me, and so yes, to some extent, AI can come forward to do that, but it might get to a point where you need a human factor in that system to help to make it better. So I guess that's all the questions. I hope I tried to answer them correctly.
Thank you very much, George. I think that you did a very excellent job on answering the questions. I would like to thank Mr. Bodi and George for spending their afternoon with us. Thank you so much. So I'd like us to just think about what we've learned today during the weekend. Thank you so much. Have an amazing weekend, everyone. Take care. Thank you, Bodi.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Chukwuemeka, Abraham, George, everyone that has stayed to this time. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.